Well, the meeting will come to order. I want to welcome today our witness, SEC Chair Mary Jo White. We thank you for being here today. The committee always likes to see you, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of things that we'll want to discuss. The Securities and Exchange Commission plays a particularly important role of encouraging capital formation, maintaining fair markets, and protecting investors. A well-functioning SEC is critical to keeping U.S. markets sound and operating efficiently. For the fiscal year 2016, the SEC is requesting $222 million increase, or that's a 15% increase over 2015. And while the SEC is fee-funded, I take our oversight responsibility seriously. And as we've seen with other agencies, including the SEC, it's not always just how much money that you receive, but it's how you spend that money that you receive. And as you recall, 2015, this subcommittee was fairly generous. There was a $150 million increase, or about 11%. I think since 2001, the agency has received an increase of about 255%, which probably more than most other agencies in the federal government. So as we discussed your fiscal year 2016 request, we want to hear from you exactly how you're going to spend that money, maybe why last year's increase didn't carry you through. But on a positive note, for the last 2 years, this committee has set aside funding to fully fund the Division of Economic and Risk Analysis. We think that cost-benefit analysis of SEC rulemaking is really important, and I'm glad to hear these funds have been used to do more analysis of the Commission's activities. And while we have a lot to talk about today, I'm especially interested in hearing your thoughts on market liquidity or illiquidity and what the SEC is doing to address this issue. I've heard that burdensome and overlapping regulations are creating a lack of liquidity in the U.S. markets and on our job creators. And if we don't redress that in a timely and consistent manner, then illiquidity could introduce potentially damaging volatility to our markets and could have far-reaching impacts on our ability to grow the economy, and quite frankly would be contrary to the SEC's mission of fostering access to capital. I'm also concerned a little bit by certain decisions made by the Financial Stability Oversight Council, the so-called FSOC. You're a member of that. Your regulations affect entities under the SEC supervision, and I'm not sure that all of the FSOC's actions are matching the mission, because the process of designating systemically important financial institutions, I think that's important, but it has some troubling implications in the sense that if these entities are given the opportunity to address the systemic risk before they're being designated, I don't think you should just be in the business of only designating more SIFIs. You should be looking for ways to mitigate systemic risk for the source of the good of our economy as a whole. And I want to bring one thing to your attention, 2 letters that I sent along with my counterpart in the Senate, Senator Bozeman. We wrote a letter that talked about the believing the SEC should take the lead on addressing, and that is when I wrote him about the Department of Labor's proposed rule to amend the definition of fiduciary. I would argue that Dodd-Frank gave the SEC the responsibility of studying and potentially developing a uniform fiduciary standard of care for broker-dealers and investment advisors, not the Department of Labor. But I've read that you believe that broker-dealers and investment advisors should be held to a similar fiduciary standard, and maybe are working on crafting a rule on this important issue, so I hope we can discuss that as we move forward. I also sent a letter to Chairman Ketchum of the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the so-called FINRA, on their proposed central database rule. Now, they are a self-regulatory organization, a so-called SRO, and I'm concerned that the SEC sometimes addresses critical market structure issues by delegating the responsibility SRO. And I'm sure that part of the reason may be that you want to protect your resources, but again, just more money is not the only way to solve problems. I think you could have reforms as simple as allowing affected market participants to provide meaningful input, that could improve the governance structure. And I hope to learn more about that. You are the securities regulator and expert. I expect the SEC to be leading the charge to help further grow our economy. You have a central role in helping businesses and investors gain access to capital and participate in securities markets, as well as protecting U.S. investors from the bad guys. That's an important responsibility, and I know you take it very seriously. So we appreciate you, what your staff does, and appreciate you being here today, and I look forward to your testimony.